जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शिरसा नमामि। आपदामपहर्तारं दातारं सर्वसम्पदां लोकाभिरामं श्रीरामं भूयो भूयो नमाम्यहम्। दक्षिणे लक्ष्मणो यस्य वामे च जनकात्मजा पुरतो मारुतिर्यस्य तं वन्दे रघुनन्दनम्। Okay, welcome back. I missed being with all of you last weekend. It seems without the association of all of you, somehow the weekend doesn't seem complete for me. Um, so let's continue. We are in Aranyakanda. Uh, we've come up to the point of chapter 32. And a quick summary is Ravana, upon the behest of Akampana, came to Janasthan with the idea of kidnapping Sita, but was advised by Maricha that such an attempt would be foolish and extremely destructive, not just to Ravana, but the entire Rakshasa clan. So Ravana took that advice and went back to Lanka. However, that was not enough. If Ravana went back to Lanka, it doesn't fulfill the higher sankalpa of the devatas. So now enter into the scene is Shurpanakha. What Akampana could not accomplish, Shurpanakha easily accomplishes. Because there is something that Akampana cannot say and do that Shurpanakha can say and do. And that is because of the intimacy of her relationship with Ravana. She's a sister. So she can say and get away with stuff that Akampana dare not even speak. So we begin with chapter 33. Shurpanakha quickly came from Janasthan to Lanka. And this is how the chapter begins. Tatah Shurpanakha Dina Ravanam Loka Ravanam Amatya Madhye Sankruddha Parusham Vakyam Abravit. She saw Ravana was seated in the middle of all of his ministers. In the back was the great Pushpaka Vimana. He was seated on a very, very fascinating, brilliant, gem-studded throne. And Amatya, all of his advisors were sitting there. Because the word mata means opinion, right? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, this is my opinion. So Amatya means those who offer opinions, ministers, advisors, council members. So the verse Valmiki says, Tataha, thereafter, means upon arriving in Lanka, Shurpanakha Dina, in a very pitiful condition, Shurpanakha, she spoke to Vakyam Abravit, she spoke to Ravana, but her speech was Parusham, Sankruddha Parusham, words that were very scathing to hear, coming from a place of anger. Sankruddha Parusham Vakyam Abravit Ravanam, who Loka Ravanam, the fellow who made the whole world cry, or who could make the people in general or the world cry. such an atrocious fellow. So the context that is when Shurpanakha saw 14,000 demons killed by Ramachandra very, very quickly, she wanted some sort of revenge because her own nose and ears were cut off. This is from the external aspect of the story. And when she saw Ravana sitting there on this fascinating throne, effulgent, with all of his followers, she realized that he is one fellow who's been unconquerable. Nobody, including the demigods, Gandharvas, Pishachas, the rishis, the great souls, the Nagas, nobody had a chance of defeating him. In fact, he looked very much like death with a gaping mouth. His body, this is how Ravana is described by Valmiki, his body had marks of wounds from the hundreds and thousands of battles that he had fought. You could see the wound left behind by the thunderbolt of Indra. His chest was marked with dents of the tusks of Airavata. Sitting there with 20 arms, 10 heads, all kinds of jewelry with gold and diamonds and rubies and emeralds and cat's eyes and pearls, and just sitting there with such broad chest, 20 arms, very much like a king that is undisputed. Very dark skinned, yet very effulgent. Sharp, blazing, molten gold earrings. Very perfectly ripped arms, white teeth, huge mouth, and he sat there looking like a massive mountain. Even though his body showed marks of being hit by the chakra of Vishnu, which the commentators remind us that that is not Sudarshan chakra. It means is one of the weapons of the category of weapons that Vishwamitra had given to Sri Ramachandra. Remember, there were 50 weapons. So this is one of those. And he was so strong that nobody could disturb him. He was like an ocean that cannot be conquered. He was very quick to respond to situations, and the way he would respond is he would just defeat and finish his enemy. He sat there with great medals. People have degrees pasted to the walls. His degree or his medals was that he had crushed the demigods. He had disobeyed all the different laws that govern good behavior. And he had forcibly raped and enjoyed the wives of other people. That was his resume. He was very, very expert at the art of releasing celestial weapons. And the crowning glory is that he had a very special liking to desecrate and destroy any Vedic rituals. That just was his hobby. So when he was seated like this, Shurpanakha, I'm not going to go into the history too much because it's backstory. I want to get to why he got the name Ravana. This was a title given by Lord Shiva. There was a point in time where Ravana wanted to conquer anyone and everyone in all the directions. So he went in the southerly direction to a place called Bhogavati, where the Nagas live. And there he defeated Vasuki. Then he defeated Takshaka. Remember Takshaka? from Srimad Bhagavatam and abducted Takshaka's wife. Then he went north to Mount Kailash. And with each victory, the intoxication of his pride started rising to such a degree that he thought he was invincible even against Lord Shiva. So he went to Mount Kailash. First, he conquered Kuvera there, took away his Pushpaka Vimana, and then, out of anger, he completely destroyed the entire forest that Kuvera had created. It was called Chitraratha. And the entire lotus pond that was there, he just completely destroyed, made a mess out of it. Then he went to Indra's palace and completely rummaged and destroyed Nandanandana gardens, which was the pride of Indraloka. So then he went to Kailash again, and with his powers that he had gotten from Brahma after 10,000 years of austerity, and so much yagyas that he had performed, he went to the place where Lord Shiva was meditating, and he thought he would get Lord Shiva's attention by picking up Kailasha mountain along with Lord Shiva and Parvati. So persons who seek attention will do things that are quite horrific just for the sake of attention. So when he tried to lift Kailasha, the whole mountain shook. Parvati said, "Whoa, what's going on? What's going on, Lord Shiva?" Lord Shiva just smiling with his big toe of his foot pressed down on the mountain. And that mountain came crashing on Ravana to such a degree that his arms, because he was trying to carry it on his shoulders or carry it like this, however you visualize it, his hands were completely crushed. And Ravana was shrieking in severe pain. Ravana, who knew no pain, was shrieking in such pain. Then he was advised by his followers and the followers of Lord Shiva, please do something to appease Lord Shiva. So spontaneously, because he was coming from the great Brahmana lineage, he was very well educated in Sanskrit and grammar and poetry and all of it, very well educated. He very spontaneously composed very fascinating prayers for Lord Shiva. One famous prayer is called Shiva Tandava Stotram. Very complex Sanskrit. Each word is about one line or two lines long, just to say one word, and in very rhythmic and full of alliteration type poetry, spontaneously composed. So finally, Lord Shiva was appeased and let go of his big toe pressing down on the mountain, and blessed Ravana that go back to Lanka, but from today you will get the title instead of Dashagriva, which was his name, you will get the title Ravana, means one who can make others cry. So Shurpanakha knew all this, that on the one hand, he's in the dynasty of Pulastya, but connected to her from her mother's side. He had blessings of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva. All the other demigods were scared of him. He was invincible. Yet, he was not doing anything about Karadushana, Trishira, and 14,000 demons that were finished by Ramachandra. So she wants to incite a sense of anger in him, a sense of vengeance. So Shurpanakha first starts to admonish him or chide him by telling him that he's neglecting the duties of a king. Right now, persons with this kind of Kshatriya spirit, they don't like to be insulted, especially in public. They don't like it at all. So she thought that if I can incite, if I can insult him, it will incite enough rajas in him that he will want to go kill Ramachandra and Lakshmana. And the way to incite that in him, which Krishna also tried in Arjuna by telling him, Klaibyam mas magamah partha. By calling him Klaibyam, Klaibyam is the feature. He says, Klaibyam ma smagamaha partha. Oh, Arjuna, don't behave like an impotent fellow. I mean, that is the greatest insult to a Kshatriya, that you're not, you're an impotent fellow. Klaibyam ma. Give up this impotence. So she wanted to tell Ravana essentially that you're dull. You're so intoxicated in your own enjoyment that you don't realize that danger is knocking at your door and you are completely spaced out about it. So she starts with telling him, listen, Ravana, that you as a king need to be self-reliant. Because if you're not self-reliant, then your citizens will not give you the esteem, the bhav, as we say in Hindi, bhav, that you will not be able to inspire in them a sense of respect and reverence for you. If they see that the king does whatever he likes, he's not interested in the welfare of his people, then the same respect that they have for the fire in the crematorium, that's the respect they will have for such a king. Now, there are 49 varieties of fires called pavakaha, different types, and at each type of occasion, you invoke a certain type of fire. For auspicious activities like weddings and namakarana, etc., the fire that is invited is called mangala. But the fire that is invited for uh, cremating a body is not considered auspicious fire because you don't do auspicious activity with it. So people in general don't give any reverence to fire, although it's very powerful. It can burn an entire body very quickly. Still, people don't have respect for it. They stay away from it. They don't have a natural sense of attraction to that fire. That's her point. So the commentary goes that a king who is wallowing in lust and has not taken any interest in the welfare of his citizens, such a king's body becomes weak, his mind becomes weak, and he loses time. And he does not take decisions in a timely manner because he can't think quickly, he can't think clearly, and he becomes pretty much numb to any interest of the citizens. And by this, the troubles in the kingdom will increase even more. So it's very important for a king to be strong in body and mind. Then she says, as far as your spies are concerned, Ravana, if you don't have spies that are good, then you don't get ground reality. You're so up in your ivory tower of enjoyment that you don't know what's happening on the ground. You become inaccessible to your people, and your self reliance becomes threatened. Just as elephants, when they see a very muddy, marshy uh, bank of a river, they will not go there. because the elephants are afraid that it might be quicksand. Now, one might say elephants are very powerful. Exactly. Elephants are very heavy. And when they go to quicksand, because of their weight, they will sink in it very quickly. Even the more they try, the quicker they will sink. So, just as elephants will avoid a muddy bank, similarly, you and in fact, your citizens will avoid you. They will keep you away. So the commentary is that Shurpanakha knew that she wants to convey to Ravana that your spies are all useless. They're all overpaid and just not working enough. They promise but very severely underdeliver, such as Akampana. He didn't tell you the whole thing. So you are sitting here thinking everything is, the word used in English is hunky dory. It's not. In fact, it's an indirect warning that even Vibhishana will leave you at some point because you are not being the kind of king that you should be. Next is, as a king, you should be well informed and you should have a vision. You should have you should have far-sightedness. And she's saying to him that if kings don't reclaim lost territory, then they become very unsuccessful. It's like having great mountains sunk under the sea. What's the point in being a great mountain if it's not visible? On the one hand, you have won over Gandharvas, demigods, Charanas, Vidyadharas. But how can you just remain like this fickle and your spies not doing their jobs? You actually are quite childish and brainless, she calls him, Ravana. So, Rakshasa, you're brainless. You don't know what you're supposed to do, but yet you're nicely sitting on the throne, posing as a king. In fact, great kings have spies that go to different. In fact, every little nook and cranny of the kingdom, and they bring back information. But here you are sitting in Lanka. Your main embassy, Janasthan, has been destroyed by one tiny human being, and you are not even aware. One, you're not aware. Second, you're not aware of the danger, what it is. You're thinking of it as some trivial activity, fairly innocuous activity, but you need to do something about it. And then she extols to give an idea who that uh, formidable enemy is for Ravana. She talks about Ramachandra, that he single-handedly, Khara and Dushana, no one could come near them. But this one human being finished them off, not just the three, but the 14,000. But here you are, lusty, deluded, dependent, and just sitting with unqualified people, not taking seriously what you need to. Then she says, what about wisdom? As a king, you need to be wise. And that a king who does not attend to his affairs properly, and he does not have this sense of fear that someday my kingdom can be attacked by somebody, loses the kingdom. Actually, he becomes some sort of wretched fellow, just like a straw on the street, trinadapi. Of course, that is not out of bhakti, but trinadapi means has no value. The king has no value. In fact, dry wood sometimes can have some value, but what about straw? There has even a dry wood or some stones and pebbles may have some value, but a king who's been rejected by his subjects has no value. Or another analogy she gives is like clothes that are either worn out or torn, or a flower garland that is crushed. These are useless. Similarly, a king loses his kingdom or becomes useless such that he loses his kingdom. But a king who's vigilant, all knowing, self controlled, grateful, and righteous, he will reign for a very, very long time. Then she says, a king who in deep sleep, he may be sleeping, but with the eyes of his wisdom, uh, and who can punish or correct and discipline when the time is correct and when the situation calls for it, people will respect such a king. But one who doesn't, then is not respected. And if the citizens don't respect the king, then what's the point in being a king? The king cannot control his kingdom. Such a kingdom will only be a kingdom for namesake, but actually have no value. Then Ravana starts to pay attention. One, because he's being chastised. I mean, imagine anyone speaking to Ravana like this. So he thinks about it, hmm, considers it, and then he asks her, tell me, Shurpanaka, because he's annoyed. He's annoyed that Shurpanaka is speaking like this, and she has the audacity to speak to him like, in a way, insulting him in front of all of his ministers. So he asks Shurpanaka, so who is this Rama? And what is his strength? How does he look like? You're talking so much of his abilities and prowess. Let me know. And why is he in the Dandaka forest? No one comes, no human being knowingly comes, except some sages come to do some meditation. But why is he in Dandaka forest? And what kind of weaponry does he have? If he killed 14,000 of these Rakshasas, what weapons does he have? And how did he kill Kharadushan and Trishura? So the acharyas explain that he could have cut off anyone else's head, but because this is his sister, he humored her by telling her, let me know about Rama. Who's this adversary? That way she knows that he has heard her out. Shrupanaka was very angry that this fellow is stupidly ignorant, is the phrase. Hopelessly infatuated, because she's in love with Ramachandra and Lakshmana. So she describes the beauty of Ramachandra to Ravana. Now, see, ideally, when someone asks, what is the nature of my enemy? Then Shurpanaka, who wants revenge, should speak all the bad qualities of the enemy, naturally. But Shurpanaka is also completely lovelorn. And when she thinks of Ramachandra, instead of speaking of his bad qualities, she can own, of course, which there are none, but even so, she only now describes the beauty of Ramachandra. That's not what Ravana asked, but she says, oh, he has long, powerful arms that reach to his knees, eyes that are broad like lotus petals, just like Taruna Rupa Sampanna verses that we discussed. He's the son of Dasharatha, is wearing antelope skin and jute clothes. He holds a bow, that's nicely decorated, um, and the bow is brilliant like a rainbow, and he shoots these fascinating, sharp arrows that are like poisonous snakes. I actually could not even see when Rama was removing an arrow from his quiver, when he was placing it on the bow, when he was pulling the string to his ear. It was all so fast that I only could see Ramachandra, but I could not see the movement of his arms. But all I saw was Ramachandra and these Rakshasas just falling like dominoes, one after the other, very, very quickly. The shower of arrows was so swift, like uh, crops that get destroyed when hailstorm happens. You've seen hailstorm ever, or heard about it, or seen on video? The balls of ice just fall with such strength. You hear a clattering noise, and the entire crop is destroyed very quickly. So she told him these 14,000 demons were finished. Then she continues that Ravana, somehow I alone escaped from there. After being insulted by Ramachandra and his brother Lakshmana. His brother cut off my nose and ears. In fact, this Lakshmana, oh, handsome like he is. Actually, he is exactly a replica of Ramachandra, equal to him in all respects, his strength, his beauty, valor, qualities, but always attached and devoted to him. Actually, he is the right hand of Ramachandra. And as if Ramachandra's life heir is living outside, and that is Lakshmana, meaning he's as good as Ramachandra's own life. That is how they love and they're dear to each other. But this Lakshmana is a very intolerant person. He is undefeatable, but he's intolerant. At the first opportunity, he wants to kill everyone. So, very irritable. That's the word. Very irritable type, but always very devoted to Sri Ramachandra. So Shurpanakha, in the commentary of the Acharyas, is described that Shurpanakha is madly in love with Lakshmana. So she could not abuse Ramachandra or Lakshmana. She just was glorifying their beauty and their characteristics. And now, this doesn't really move Ravana too much. So now she attacks his lusty heart by describing the beauty of Sita Devi. Of course, we are not Ravanas or the mighty Ravanas, but yesterday in India was Sita Navami. In America, it was Thursday. So here are some verses describing the beauty of Sita Devi, although from the mouth of Shurpanakha into the trashy ears of Ravana and the very dirty heart of Ravana, still the beauty is not affected. So she says, Ramasya tu visalakshi, purnendu sadrishanana, dharmapatni priya nityam, bhartah priya hiterata. However, Ramachandra's dharmapatni, his wife, right, who is Bharta priya hiterata. She only acts for the pleasure of her husband. And she is very dear to him, just as he is very dear to her. And Ravana, she has a face that is like the full moon, Purnendu Sadrisha Anana. And in that full moon like face, she has Visalakshi, very big eyes. And that's not it. There is more, Ravana. Sa Sukeshi, Sunasa, Uruhu, Surupa, Cha Yashasvini. She has Sukeshi, very beautiful hair. One of the signs of beauty is, when women will, whatever, fleur their hair. That is why hair, in the signs of beauty, hair is given such importance. So Sukeshi, very beautiful hair, flowing, curly, dense, thick. Sunasaha, her nose is very beautifully formed, pointed, perfectly raised, just like this yellow, mostly a good nose is compared to a particular type of flower that is so perfectly formed and pointed. And then Uru. Uru means very, very well-formed thighs, sign of beauty. Surupa, very, very elegantly featured body. Yashaswini, very glorious and famous lady. Devata iva vanastha, asya rajate shrir iva apara. Actually, Devata iva vanastha. She is residing in the forest like a goddess. And what kind of goddess? Shrir Iva Apara, like a second Mahalakshmi, meaning she is Mahalakshmi. If you don't know if you'll ever get darshan of Mahalakshmi, but if it is, then Taptakanchana Varna. We glorify Srimati Radhani Rani also as Taptakanchana Gaurangi. Similarly, Taptakanchana Varna. Abha Rakta Tunga Nakhi Shubha. Rakta Tunga Nakhi. Her nails are very well formed and have a nice reddish hue to them. Sita Nam Vararoha Vaidehi Tanumadhyama. Sita Nama. Her name is Sita or Vaidehi because she's the daughter of the king of Videha. So just some name Sita. Hey, she comes from a very, very thoroughbred family, meaning she is uncontaminated beauty. Vararoha, and she is incomparable. And Tanu Madhyama, she has a very slender waist, Ravana. And Vararoha means very curvaceous waist, thin waist and curved hips. Vararoha. Then she says, न एव देवी न गंधर्व न यक्षी न च किन्नरी यथा रूप मया नारी दृष्टा पूर्व महीतले. Ravana, she is not a god, demigoddess. She is not a Gandharvi. She is not a Yakshi. She is not a Kinnari. Yet, Tatha Rupa Maya Nari Drushtva Purva Mahitale. I have never seen on the surface of the earth someone as beautiful as she is. Maya Nari Drushtva Na Purva Mahitale. On the surface of this earth, never has a woman as beautiful ever walked or existed. Then, Yasya Sita Bhaved Bharya Yam Chahashta Parishajate. I would long to see, I think, to whom Sita will become a wife, that she would gladly throw her arms around such a person and embrace him. Ati jiveta sa sarveshu lokeshu api purandaraha. A man around whom Sita will happily uh, throw her arms to embrace him, such a person will live in the three worlds just like Indra enjoys uncomparable opulence and happiness and enjoyment. And then she says, Sa Sushila Vapuhu. Her body is so Sushila is gentle, is very delicate and attractive. Shlaghya Rupena Apratima Bhuvi. Shlaghya. Shlaghya is this, the best way to say Shlaghya is something that is worth describing. There are many persons whose features are not worth describing, but hers, Shlaghya Rupena, is so describable that we can only constantly sing. If you see her form in your mind, you cannot forget it. You will only be glorifying that form. And Apratima Bhuvi, she has no one to compare. She's someone that you have no comparison. Tava Anurupa Bharya Sa Tvam Chatasya Patihi Varaha. And I hope that she will become your wife and you will become a suitable husband for her. Tam tu vistirnah jaghnam pina utanga payodharah. She says, O Ravana, bharya arthe tu tava anatum udyata aham varanana virupita asmi krurena lakshmena mahabhujah. O Ravana, with great arms, Mahabhuja, actually I was deformed by Lakshmana. Virupita asmi krutena Lakshmanena. He is the one who did this. But I cannot tell you that Sita, Tam tu Vistirna, this lady, uh, Vistirna Jaganam, who has a very slender waist but very well formed hips and very attractive rounded breasts, and she should become your wife. And the way is you should bring her to you, and that is what I long to see. I long to see that she should become your wife. And tam tu drashtva adya vaidehim purna chandra nibhananam manmathasya sharanam cha tvam vidheyo bhavishyasi. If you see Sita, tam tu drash, but if you see her, Adya, right now, Vaidehi, like this full moon, you will become so attracted to her face and body and features such that you will feel the arrows of Cupid strike your heart like anything. That the pain of Cupid's arrows are such that they are unbearable, yet they make you long for something. Ravana, that is Sita Devi. यदि तस्याम अभिप्रायो भार्या अर्थे तव जायते शीघ्रम अद्य ध्रियताम पादो jayartham iha dakshinah. He says, if you really want someone like Sita to be your wife and you want to be successful, then immediately, like they say in Hindi or Sanskrit, Shubhasya Shighram, anything auspicious should not be delayed. Do it right now. And the way to do it right now, any auspicious activity is done by putting your right foot forward first. That's why when you enter the temple or when you're married and the wife enters the house, they say, please enter with your right foot first. So she's saying, Dakshina Pado Jayartham Iha Griyatam Adya. Right now, put your right foot forward. It's auspicious activity. Go and get Sita for yourself. रोचते यदि ते वाक्यम मम एतद् राक्षसेश्वरः क्रियताम निर्विशंकेन वचनम मम रावण. Oh, the Lord of the Rakshasas, Rakshaseshwaraha. If this advice of mine is pleasing to you, rochate yadi vakyam mama. If my words are inspiring and pleasing to you, kriyatam, do it. Nirvishankena. Don't sit here hesitating and thinking, should I do it or not? Don't think so much. Do it right now. Vigyaya iham atma shaktim cha kriyatam cha mahabalah. Sita tava anavadyangi bharyatve rakshaseswara. So let your heart be drawn towards her. And oh great mighty Ravana, let that fabulously formed limbs of Sita Devi be abducted in such that she becomes your wife. Nishamya Ramena Sharaihi Ajignaihi Hatan Janasthan Gatan Nishacharan Kharam cha drashtva nihatam cha dushanam tam adya krityam pratipattum arhasi. You know, even if Ramachandra were to shoot arrows and he killed everyone in Janasthan, Kharadushana and all that, they are no match to you. Those were smaller demons. But for you, come on, Ravana. The Sita Devi is waiting for you to be kidnapping. Not that she's waiting. She's there, available for you. Go ahead. And so she filled Ravana's ears with all these things. So when Ravana heard this, naturally, he became very inspired. And then we will hear how he will go back to Maricha and hatch a very, very nasty, insidious plan to kidnap Sita Devi. So I'll pause here and see if there are any comments or questions, concerns, thoughts, inspirations, reflections.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Krishna Kumar Das here. Please accept my humble wishes.
Hare Krishna.
Why is that when one talks such statements, they make us feel like insulted? And what is it like? Is it our ego, our false ego? Is it our or all lust, greed, anger? I mean, why is that is so strong that we cannot think properly, or we get moved with those words or statements?
Excellent question, Prabhu. So we have to think about how this package of ahankara works. The word ahankara means I, and kara, I am the cause. Kartaham iti manyate, Krishna says, right? Ahankara, I am the doer. So the ahankara has the feature or at least two dimensions to it: who I am and what is mine or what I can accomplish. So who I am is a feature of pride. Pride means a sense of identity. I am proud to be Indian. I'm proud to be American. I'm a proud father, proud husband, proud this one, whatever. It just comes from a sense of identity. And prestige comes from what belongs to me. I have so much money. I have this one, that thing. I have a position, whatever. I have fame, I have education, whatever. So pride and prestige. These two form the blocks or building blocks of ahankara. And so ahankara is like this feature that can get very easily poked. And the world has people around us who can poke at it. And so it's an attack on a person. Although, philosophically speaking, we are the soul who's not affected by praise or insult, right? Supposedly. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Na abhinandati, na one who's not insulted. That is the soul. However, because I think I am this body, anything that is directed towards the body mind combination, I take as mine or as me. So she's talking about a king. A king is useless. A king is horrible. If he is not paying attention to his spies or not keeping his citizens under his control and discipline, and Ravana is thinking, yes, I'm a king. Or she says, oh, that beauty of Sita is such captivating that whoever she embraces, that person will enjoy like Indra. He's thinking, yes, I want to feel Sita's skin touch my skin. And she will be my possession. And this is true for all living beings in this material world. We want the senses to be pleased. So it's the entire package together. The subtle body or false ego, the mind, the intelligence, they all work towards strengthening this identification that I am this body. And the mind likes pleasing things and rejects displeasing words and behaviors and sensations. Does that satisfy you, Prabhu?
Yes, yes, bro. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Um, I have a basic question on
All right.
what kind of a basic education was given to Ravana? I'm just going in the direction of is he even aware of Lord Vishnu, Mahalakshmi exist? Because I'm understanding he is aware of Lord Brahma and Shiva. So where is the disconnect? Why is he not able to understand that Ramachandra is Lord Vishnu and he should not be going up against him? Where is this disconnect? Is what's happening? What's is it the education that's a disconnect, or is the Maya acting so hard on him that he's not able to understand?
Right. So obvious, but and same is our case. So obvious, yet we miss the point. So first of all, what is Ravana's basic education? Ravana's is a triple PhD minimally. He is very, very well educated. His father is a son of Lord Brahma in one sense, or a descendant from Lord Brahma, Pulastya Muni. Very well educated. He has learned. In fact, there were sages who would sometimes ask Ravana for little commentary on Sanskrit, and very well educated, no problem. Yet, that has nothing to do with self realization. I mean, not that these are words of great persons, but in my life, my father would sometimes joke and say, literacy and education are not the same. One can be very, very literate, have many degrees, but can be not educated at all. And someone can be very educated and perhaps not literate at all. So education and literacy or wisdom, they're not connected in one sense. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, Krishna says, Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante. There are four types of people who don't recognize me and my position in relation to them. And the first says Namam Dushkriti. They're called Dushkritis. First is Mudha. Mudha means a foolish fellow. Even if you say and show scripture or say and give all logic and other reasoning, will be doggedly obstinate and say, no, I don't believe it. Mudha. Naradhama. Nara Adhama means the lowest of human beings who knows better, just doesn't act on it, or having known, doesn't utilize it. Naradhama. Then he says, Mayaya apaharita jnana. Someone whose knowledge has been stolen by Maya. So, Namam Dushkritino Mudha Prapadyante Naradhama Maya Aprahita Jnana Rakshasim Bhavam Asuram. And one who has a demoniac mentality. Demoniac mentality means that I want to destroy someone else for my own self. And Ravana fits those two categories, Rakshasim Bhavam and Maya Pahrita Jnana. All knowledge has been taken away. So he sees Vishnu, but he's not going towards Vishnu. He wants to be, because the moment you consider Vishnu, then you have to talk transcendental world. He's not seeing that far. He just wants to rule over this entire universe. And the way to rule over the universe is he got Lord Brahma's blessings. Great. He went and messed around with Lord Shiva and then offered prayers, and Lord Shiva gave him blessings. Oh, your name is Ravana, you'll make others cry. Great, I got Lord Shiva's blessings also, and I don't have any panga with Lord Shiva because, hey, I'm Lord Shiva. What does he have? He's sitting with ash smeared on his body, wearing a necklace of skulls and bones. Anyway, doesn't even have a home, sitting under a tree. I'm not competing with him. I'm not competing with Lord Brahma. He's just busy in studying Vedas. I want the universe. I want to rule over the universe. And so, even if Lord Vishnu has appeared as a human being, and that is his issue, human beings. If I have taken care of demigods, Gandharvas, Siddhas, Charanas, Nagas, what will a human being do to me? Not even my league. That is the Maya ya apahrita jnana. Maya has stolen away his intelligence, his basic sense of discrimination or judgment. And so he goes on doing what he needs to do.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That clarifies things.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. This is Eagle Kishore Das. Yeah, Prabhuji, can it be also connected that they were Jay and Vijay and they were cursed? So how do we synthesize that aspect of being cursed by four Kumaras?
I'm not sure how to synthesize. I mean, they're cursed, so they've forgotten their relationship with the Supreme. And as part of the Leelas, obviously, they become defiant of Vishnu and Vishnu's rule over everything in creation. So, sure, in one sense, then all living entities are also parts and parcels that have forgotten, all of us have forgotten our relationship, such that we can't perceive the presence of the Supreme Lord in our hearts. He's right there.
Yes.
We feel a complete void. Where is God? There is no God. God doesn't exist. He's the closest, but we don't have. Because Maya apahrita jnana. Maya has put a little curtain such that we cannot perceive.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dharmat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
This is Akuti Devidasi. Prabhuji, I was just wondering, like in Raman and Sagar's Ramayana, we saw that actually Raman was moving with only one head. You described he was sitting with 10 heads. So all the time he was having 10 heads, or he at times when he's happy, he would make 10 heads.
He had a backpack and he would put them all in his bag and suitcase. And when he had to go to the parties, he would put on his 10 heads. But if he had to walk through a door, it would stop him. So he would put only one head. And then once he's inside, he would put all the 10 heads on. He is,
Laughing like anything.
and you should ask Raman and Sagar how he figured it out. I mean, jokes aside, he was born with 10 heads, but as a Rakshasa, he has the mystical potency that he can transform his form, right? However he likes. Like Shurpanakha, although very old, appeared in front of Ramachandra as a very young, attractive woman. Or Putana, although a hideous demon, came as a very attractive lady who wanted to nurse Krishna and walked straight into the house of Nanda Maharaj. So they can change their forms. So Ramananda Sagar saw Ravana with one head, but he's by the name Dashagriva, 20 arms and 10 heads. Our problem is we try to visualize how that might look. And that's where things get a little difficult.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Please don't see Raman and the Sagar as a Ramayana. Okay. Please don't. It's very horribly done.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You're,
Yes.
you're talking about display, something that is pleasing to the mind, we usually go for it, and something that is displeasing to the mind, we generally avoid it.
Do you disagree?
No, I'm trying to see that if there are anarthas in my heart, and then somebody is trying to help me, or Krishna is trying to help me to overcome those anarthas, it's difficult and it's not like very pleasing to go through that experience. And how is it that a living entity happens to access such a help when it is coming, because it also seems very displeasing?
Yeah. And the path of spiritual advancement is to learn to transcend the pleasing and displeasing and hold on to the words of the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, or we call the phrase descending mercy. And this volunteering, this voluntary choice of holding on to the instructions of the Guru and Shastra, even though it might be displeasing, is called tapasya, because there is the displeasing sensation is the burning in the heart. There is this inconvenience, and that is called tapasya. And when one takes on that tapasya, that uncomfortable feeling is the feeling of removing of that conception of pleasing versus displeasing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I had a second question, and I was thinking, like, Surpanakha came in public and she's expressing what she's feeling, and is that like some people like to express in public, and some people can only express like in a private setting? So is it like a personality, or in Surpanakha's case looks like it was more like a strategy that she was having?
Yeah, demons are very manipulative. She wanted, if she insulted Ravana in private, you'd have told her, get lost. But in front of everyone, she called him, you're a fool, you're sleeping, death is knocking at your door, your kingdom's going to go away. You're just wallowing in your own lusty behavior that this kingdom's going to go away. Yeah, it's a very specific, deliberate, vicious strategy. And guess what? Ravana falls for it. The thing is, Ravana, Hiranyakashipu are very, very, very great person, strong externally, but internally very vulnerable and weak. And that's what she attacked. What is his weakness? Sensual touch of the skin of some other woman, someone else's wife. It's not just touch of the skin of another woman, just someone else's wife. That's what he likes. Horrendous. And she told him, I haven't seen, you've enjoyed so many women up there, in the Nagaland here, this one, that one. But this one, whole different league. I've never seen a woman like that. And she's Rama's bharya. Oh, even more enticing for you.
So when is it that a person can overcome such things? Is it more like being emotionally aware of what's happening inside when such things come to us, like from a
Well,
perspective of a common man?
awareness may not be enough. It's a combination. Also need to have good advisors. Ravana has advisors, and you'll notice throughout Ramayana, from here on, Ravana gets so much advice, but he doesn't listen to them. In fact, Maricha will chastise him. A useless fellow. You don't have good advisors. Two things are important. One is good advice, and second, you to accept the good advice. Both are required. You have neither.
Prabhu, I have another question.
Yeah, 1 second. Let's Tira be satisfied.
Yeah, I'm good, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Prabhu. Krishna Kumar Prabhu.
We always want more. Like we see here, Ravana wanting to enjoy more or more. And
Yes.
sometimes we, I mean, there's one aspect of wanting to, chant more or serve more. But there's also, we hear among, devotees or that, we should preach more, or we should have more this, we should have more, expand, uh, or or collect more funds. Like how I mean, there's one thing, like at the end we also see like many great devotees in Bhagavatam. They want like even devotees like Prithu Maharaj and all, they were very minimalistic. Rishabh Dev, they were very minimalistic at the end of their pastimes. So how do we uh, draw or imbibe that in our life, like being minimalistic and being uh, serve Krishna more and at the same time be minimalist?
So there is spiritual greed, and its perverted reflection is what we call material greed. And spiritual greed is for wanting of more in the intensity of one's relationship with Krishna. And in that, if they get more that will facilitate that service, they don't mind that. And the perverted reflection is wanting more for oneself. The original is wanting more for Krishna's pleasure. The other is wanting more for oneself. And oftentimes, even within devotional circles, because the persons are still moving through anartha nivriti, these two are mixed possibly. That I want more chanting, more money, more preaching, is because yes, there is a feature or dimension that says that is for Krishna's pleasure, but perhaps there is also the other dimension that I feel good about it. And to exactly separate water from the milk, only Paramahamsas can do. For everyone else, it looks like milk. And it's not our business to evaluate someone else's milk. We evaluate our own milk very scrutinizingly. But it can be there. And as this milk then, by the grace of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, as one progresses, one recognizes or how much they actually want and don't want, or need or don't need. But in the journey, it may not be able to be so perceivable. So Prithu Maharaj wanted to do 100 Ashwamedha Yagyas. Why? He could have done one and be satisfied, or 2 or 10, 100. But internally, he was so detached that when Lord Brahma said, "You've done 99," we all agree you've reached such glory that it's unmatched. So 100th one, just let it go. Okay, let it go. But as a king, doing it and for his citizens and for what he needed to do, he did 100. Rishabdev was not a minimalistic king. Rishabdev was a fascinating, rich, emperor. But when he left it, very minimal, just walked out and didn't even look back at his kingdom, palace, money, jewel, relatives, nothing. Just walked out straight. That is a different detachment, which tends to tell us that when he was sitting on the throne, although he had amassed so much, he was not attached to it. So there is a spiritual aspect and its reflection. The object and its reflection, both are there. And both may be there for a practicing devotee as well. Maybe the reflection is stronger some cases, many cases, but both should be there. Okay?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Okay. Final question, and then we'll end for the day.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Sajishita Das. Please accept my
Hare
humble
Krishna.
obeisances. Prabhu, like when you are saying that Ravana has an attraction to enjoy the touch from other person's wife, and how is that related to Parakya Rasa? I'm just trying to frame the question, like what exactly is Parakya Rasa and how to connect between his
Don't
attraction to
connect.
that?
No connection. No connection.
Okay,
No.
what is Parakya Rasa, Prabhu?
Parakya Rasa is Krishna's enjoyment. It is Krishna's. We are all, or the conditioned souls are imitator Krishnas. We all imitate Krishna. And that's what it is. But Parakya Rasa is to show that although in the worldly sense one may be someone else's wife or wife, but in their heart everyone belongs to Krishna. But Ravana's is not Parakya Rasa. It's a very, very horrendous perversion. Of course, it's sourced from Krishna, but not to be exercised within the material realm.
Right. Thank you, Prabhu. That's helpful.
You're welcome. All right. Okay, we'll stop here for today. It's already 10:15. Went longer, but thank you. Next time, be prepared for Ravana meeting Maricha and devising a very sinister plot to kidnap Sita Devi. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.